What's up, YouTube? Neil from Geauga Firearms Academy. Thanks for watching. Today I want to dive into some details on the defensive draw, and I want to be very clear about defensive. I think that there is a time and place for competitive shooting. I don't think that it is a replacement in any way. In fact, it would be a harm to say that it's good for defensive shooting. I think there's some skill sets that we can take from that, but at the end of the day, they are literally on each end of the spectrum, okay? We're not talking about how fast and putting holes in a cardboard, and if we make a little mistake there, it doesn't really matter. If I'm faster and more accurate, then I'm going to win. In real life, that doesn't work that way. In real life, I want to be able to expose as little of myself and see as much of the bad guy as possible in order to give myself a position of advantage and win that confrontation. Also, unlike competition, in a defensive scenario, it is not planned. I don't know what the stage is. I'm just doing my normal human stuff that I need to do, and suddenly I have this problem, and this problem is very real, lethal, and right now I have no time to prep. I didn't know what was going to go down. I don't know the situation, and I just have to deal with it. And one of the things that we're going to have to deal with is going to be distance. I've never, in all my law enforcement career, I have never had anyone tell me, yeah, the attacker was X amount of yards away and said, hey, I'm going to come and attack you, so get ready. I mean, that just doesn't happen. The whole purpose of that probably was because the person wasn't paying attention in the beginning, and now they're way behind the power curve. They're behind the power curve anyway because they're reacting to a situation. And we all know that reaction is always slower than action. That said, distance and time is not on my side here. So to think that I'm going to be able to draw this pistol out and present it all the way out is kind of a pipe dream. That's probably not going to happen. In most cases, this is going to be a violent confrontation, and I'm going to be lucky to get the gun out at all. That said, and I don't have a holster on it, it's not really that important. What's important right now is understanding a defensive draw versus a competitive or range or max speed, right? So I want to take this gun and I want to make a decision, okay? When I draw this gun up, one, I want to activate both hands. Now, I've talked about this in every single class, but I probably talked about it on YouTube as well. A lot of instructors teach you to clear your garment with your support hand and then draw your gun with your shooting hand, which I completely disagree with. And the reason I disagree with that is because I don't want to have to require two hands to do a one-handed job. I want efficiency, right? So in other words, let's just say for a moment that this gun, and I'll just put it here on my side, I would typically carry at 4 o'clock, but just so you ease of viewing here, if I were to draw this gun, and it would be in a holster, of course, both hands move at the same time, I'm going to grab my garment with my primary hand and rip it up. I'm going to keep that pinned with my support hand. The key about this is a bonus. In other words, if I always do this and then go get my gun, what happens on the day that someone grabs me? What happens on the day I have to keep someone back, my family, my kids, another bystander, whatever? Now I have to rely completely on getting this gun out and present it, potentially with only one hand. So if I always practice in that method, then it's not going to be a huge thing at the worst possible time. Think about it. If every time I draw the gun, I always clear with my support hand, and now I don't have that, that's a huge deal. So I've taught from day one, always. I'm always going to clear with my primary shooting hand. This is a bonus. If I have it, great. I'm going to run down and get my gun, okay? Now, here's where we have to go from here. Once I clear leather, right, once I get this out of the holster, and again, just so that we're on the same page, if this hand was incapacitated, it was injured, someone was grabbing me, I was holding somebody back, I don't need this hand at all if I do my job properly. I'm still going to be able to draw this gun out of a holster, of course, with no issues. That said, let's forget about clearing garments for now, just for simplicity of the video. So my gun is here, 4 o'clock, whatever the case is. When I draw this gun out, by the time I clear leather, meaning the holster is now out of the, the gun is out of the holster, at this point I'm going to drop my elbow down. One of the big mistakes people always make, they use their wrist to try to point the gun. This is not a strong move. I can take a finger on the range and hold somebody's gun in there. What I need to do is drop my elbow down. Now, here's where things are very drastically different. Instead of trying to just take this gun and go from A to B as quickly as possible, I need to make a decision. Do I even need to go from A to B? Because a lot of times I want to go back to C. I want to go back. So if you guys out there who are watching this right now were the bad guy here, think about it. If you're close to me, I know the camera and whatnot, but essentially you're 3 feet or less, I'm not going to drive this gun out here because you're just going to grab it and we're going to get into a struggle. It makes no sense. And I make this joke a lot in the range, but when you think about it, it makes sense. I want you to think about, I've drawn this gun up, and now this is my ball. You can't have it. Right? I want to keep this. And so I have a choice at this point. Notice, where's my gun? It's not dead center in front of me. It's on the side of me. It's there for a reason. This is where the defensive draw really completely changes from competitive or shooting fast in the range. This is about retention. If I don't have this or I give it to the bad guy, I mean, what are my chances of survival here? So this is mine and you can't have it. And so the idea here is as soon as this clears, I have it here and now I have a choice. And my choice is either yes, in this case the adversary is far enough away that I can draw my pistol out there and potentially get sights on, or I'm not going to let you have this, so I'm going to actually take it back further. No, you can't have this. And again, that could be a bunch of different things. Maybe I'm being struck at the same time and I'm protecting myself, and this is more of a what we call a pelvic girdle shot. Or maybe I'm just coming back here with two hands, or maybe there's someone behind me trying to grab my gun and I'm using this to defend myself. I got two hands nice and tight on the gun. A variety of reality things about defensive purposes. I know it looks super cool to go on the range and burn targets down and have a sub-second draw, but at the end of the day, in self-defense, if I, one, lose my gun or can't get it out, or I don't have it anymore because they took it away from me, what does it matter how fast it was? And the other problem we always have when it comes to defensive scenarios is we always assume that we're the only one with a gun. Well, in most scenarios, getting off the X and going behind a piece of cover is my first step, not getting my gun out, because I don't care how slow you are, and I have a sub-second draw, I don't care how fast I am, I'm never going to beat you if you already have a gun out. So think about that. We have to create space and get away and get behind cover and all those other things. Totally separate video. For this, again, the key here is I'm not coming from this point and just driving the gun straight out. I'm coming up in more of an L formation. When I draw this gun out, I'm pretty high up. The reason I'm high up is because as I go to extend this gun, if, and that's the big one, if the situation deems that possible, because my attacker is far enough away from me, I have enough distance, then peripherally, through my vision, I can start to see this, even though I'm focused on what is going on in front of me. I'm going to start to see this, and as this comes up, my vision's gradually going from the threat to that front sight. Okay? Again, I may not have that opportunity. I'm here, and I'm keeping the gun back further from my adversary, whatever that may look like. Okay? So that defensive draw is very different. One of the things we see on the range all the time, especially when the draw falls apart, is what we call bowling or fishing. And a lot of times, when you guys are, if you have taken, please take a actual class. It doesn't have to be from us, from anybody that you like or trust. But when you take a class about learning to draw from the holster, you have to go home and watch yourself, whether you film yourself, which is definitely a good idea, or you do it in front of a mirror. Because I would say probably 75 to 80% of the students, I'll say, hey, you just did X, Y, and Z, and they're like, oh, I have no idea. We all have biomechanical movements that are natural to us, subconsciously that we do, that we don't realize, okay? And I didn't recognize this until I became an instructor and years of watching people do stuff. I'm like, how do you not know you're doing that? It's just the way we're wired, okay? So what is bowling and what is fishing? It's pretty much what it sounds like. So fishing is, they draw the gun out, and for some reason, again, it's just it's your biomechanics or what you learned wrong years ago, or you watch somebody, or you think in your mind that's what it's supposed to look like. They come out with the gun now pointed towards the sky, then they kind of cast it out, and then they find their front sights, which makes no sense at all. I want to be here. Notice if I fire directly right now, if this is a real gun, and someone was directly in front of me, if I turn towards the camera here, this is going to fire towards the center mass of the person in front of me. So from here, I'm already ready. I'm already prepared. If I had to shoot from here, I can. I can take it back further. Whatever the case is, notice that automatically, too, when I do this, if I do move the gun back in any way, that the gun automatically cants out. And again, this is something through training. What I don't want to do is have the gun here where it could hit my body and then cause a malfunction. So automatically, from my lat muscle here in my forearm, that's just the index point. I know that wherever this hand might be, defending myself or whatever, that is going to be a good pelvic girdle shot. It's going to be center mass, or center towards the pelvic girdle. Now, so again, casting is when they bring the gun up like this, drive it all out. Again, where is this oriented? This has nothing to do with potentially stopping my threat right now. Almost not until the very end, right? That is a huge waste of time and effort. And when we talk about being quick on the range, mostly, I shouldn't say that, 100% of the time, it's about being more efficient. I tell students all the time, if I'm faster than you, it's not because I'm moving at some superhuman rate. It's just because I'm more efficient, okay? So that's casting or fishing. The other one is bowling. And as you can see, it's the opposite. So people, it's weird. They'll come out of the holster, they'll dip right back down, and then they swing up like this. And we see them all. I don't know what is more popular, but I see this and this all the time. The bottom line is, the second this clears the holster and my elbow's locked, I should be forward from this point on, driving forward. If I had, I'll look at the camera, if I close my eyes, once I'm centered here and I drive straight out, I should be somewhere pretty close to the camera area, okay? So the idea here is that I don't want to bowl this out. I don't want to cast this out. I want to take this as high up as possible so that I have the least amount of movement to get to my sights. I can either retain this more or drive the gun out. So I'm here and then I drive the gun out. So a defensive draw is significantly different because I have to deal with an environment that is way different than competitive shooting or just shooting fast at the range. And I'm not saying that there's no skills that you can take from competitive shooting or just going fast at the range. Certainly you can. But understand that in real life, when the stuff hits the fan, that the draw has to put us in a position of advantage of retaining our gun. That's probably the number one takeaway from this. I make the decision, do I drive this out or do I retain it or do I even bring it back further to keep it away from a potential threat? So Kim brought up one other important point, something we do in classes all the time. I'll have everybody at the range in a defensive class. I'll stand in front of the class. Nobody has any guns on them. And I tell them to put their hand like this, like if they're a little finger gun, right? By their side, and I say, okay, now point it directly at my center mass, right? Nobody, not once ever in thousands and thousands of students has anybody ever gone, right? However, oddly enough, as soon as we put a gun in their hand, they end up doing this all the time, which this is not going to help you when the slide comes back and racks you off the chest or wherever, okay? Plus, this is a good example because I have a wall back here. I realize you might see some shadows, but whatever. So if I'm backed up against this wall, how do I get back further from here? I'm kind of stuck here, all right? But if I'm at least on my side, I have some movements, right? I have some capabilities. So the bottom line here is we don't want to come here. I just want to focus. So I'm looking right at the camera lens right now. So from this position, I'm just going to bring those sights right up to me. So there you go, guys. That is the breakdown, very detailed, in the weeds look at the defensive draw and how it differs from just going fast in the range or competitive shooting. Again, there's advantages to everything that we can do, but when it comes to defensive, keeping that weapon is number one. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, give us a like, a thumbs up. We always appreciate that. You can find us here on YouTube, Facebook. We put our stuff on Rumble. We are also putting our A-list stuff on Patreon. And if you guys don't know, for our top level for Patreon at $25, that also is a credit towards a class. So if you have any inclination of potentially coming to one of our classes, you will get a monthly webinar at our top tier and credits towards that class. Until next time, remember, it's always better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6.